What's going on, everybody? Today I wanted to shoot a quick video just introducing you to Chapter 19. Oops, sorry, so that we don't fall behind any further behind that updated schedule that I gave you guys previously. All right, so I shot that video last time to wrap up Chapter 18 when I wasn't able to come to class on Friday. So today I'm shooting this video to introduce you to Chapter 19. All right, so Chapter 19 is all about something called job order cost accounting. All right, so the first learning objective, the first thing we want to be able to do is to distinguish between this job order cost accounting, what we're going to spend the rest of this chapter talking about, and then something called process costing. And process costing is what we'll spend chapter 20 talking about in its entirety. All right, so cost systems, these job order and process costing systems, these are just two ways that a manufacturing company can track the costs of the different jobs that they're completing, all right, through their manufacturing system. All right, so they're used to assign costs to their products. Process costing and job order costing are just two methods that are used to be able to do this, right? So like I said, we'll focus on job order costing for the rest of this chapter, and then we'll focus on the second one, process costing, for chapter 20, after we finish kind of just explaining when we would use which one, all right? So which system would be used when. All right, so let's start with process costing. Process costing is used by companies that produce large numbers of identical units. All right? So for example, let's say I'm Kellogg's company, right? And I'm manufacturing Frosted Flakes. It doesn't make much sense for me to calculate the cost of each individual box of Frosted Flakes, right? They probably cost roughly the same thing. We're probably manufacturing thousands of them every day, so it just doesn't make a lot of sense to know the cost of each individual box of cereal that we manufacture. So instead, we would use this process costing system, and essentially a process costing system just spreads out over all of the costs of producing over the course of a period of time, usually a month, and then it kind of just summarizes all those costs and spreads them out based on how many total units were produced. All right? Paper mills are another example, oil refineries another example, but just anybody, any type of manufacturing company that is producing large quantities of identical units. Or I think of mass producing. So anybody who's mass producing, they would use this process costing system. Job order costing, on the other hand, job order costing is used for production of large, unique, high-cost items, as it tells us on the screen here. When we're talking about job order costing, we're talking about things that are built to order instead of mass produced, like we talked about with process costing. All right, so we're talking about things that are specialized or individualized each job. So special order printing, building construction, hospitals, and law firms, even though these are services, they still use a form of job order costing. All right, so with job order costing, what we're doing is we're really keeping track of the cost of each individual job, unlike what I just mentioned with that box of cereal, that box of Frosted Flakes for Kellogg's, right? With job order costing, we're keeping track of all of the costs, right? All the costs we talked about back at chapter 18. The cost of materials, the cost of labor, the cost of overhead. We're keeping track of all of those costs for each of these individual jobs so that we can keep track of them and we can know how much that individual job costs. All right, so all of these that are up here, for example, building construction, let's hit that one. All right, building construction, it's absolutely essential that we keep track of how much we're spending constructing this building. All right, if we're constructing 10 different buildings and one of them is going to take us, 6 months and another one's going to take us 2 years, the one that's going to take us 6 months, they're not going to be very happy if they're charged the same thing as the one that's going to take 2 years, right? They're going to want to be billed based on how much time and how much materials, how much labor we actually spent there on that specific site. All right, hospitals are the same thing, right? If I have a patient who's checking in and kind of just getting monitored for some sort of routine thing that's going on, versus a patient that's next door that's getting treated, some very high-tech treatment for, whatever crazy condition they might have, and they're getting all this testing done and they're getting all these procedures done. All right, I wouldn't be happy if I'm charged the same thing as that person if I'm the one who just checked in for some routine maintenance, right? All right, I want to make sure that I'm charging each of those individual patients their fees based on what services I've provided them, right? So in any of those situations, we'd use what's called a job order costing system. All right, so just to illustrate these, let's take a peek at short exercise 19.1 in your textbook. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pull that textbook page up right here. All right, so I have it up right here, short exercise 19.1 from your book. All right, and then I'll just kind of walk you through these, and we'll talk about which of these companies would use which of these different job order or process costing systems. All right, so it says, would the following companies most likely use job order costing or process costing? So letter A says a manufacturer of refrigerators, right? So if I'm talking about a manufacturer of refrigerators, chances are those refrigerators are not built to order, right? LG or Frigidaire or whoever the company is that's producing those refrigerators, they might have different models, right? They might have different specs on those different models, but I can't call and say I want my refrigerator to be this wide, I want it to have this much, storage in it, I want, this many drawers. You just can't do that. You have to pick out the one that fits most closely to what you want it for. So a manufacturer of refrigerators would therefore be process costing. All right, a manufacturer of specialty wake boards. All right, so one word in this sentence leads me to believe that this is job order costing instead of process costing, and that's that word specialty. So because they're specialty wakeboards, I'm assuming that they're maximizing the design of this wakeboard based on the person's size, technique, whatever it is. But these specialty wakeboards would be accounted for using that job order costing system instead of process costing. A manufacturer of luxury yachts. A manufacturer of luxury yachts would be an example of someone who uses, again, job order costing. All right, if I'm gonna take the money that I've personally grown and invest in a luxury yacht, I'll tell you what, I better be able to tell them exactly what I want in it, right? It better be built to order instead of mass produced, right? So that luxury yacht would be an example of job order costing. A professional services firm. A professional services firm, all right, what I'm talking about there is like these service companies, like a law firm. All right, so for that professional services firm, as we just saw in the last slide, they'd use a job order costing system. A landscape contractor. Again, if I'm a landscape contractor, if I'm the person who they're doing that landscaping for, I want to make sure that they're keeping track of exactly what they've spent on me, right? What plants they put in, what mulch they laid down, how much lawn mowing they did. All right, if one landscaping firm is doing, the college campus, and they're also doing, the arena club grounds next door. The college campus is way bigger than the arena club, right? And it's got way more landscaping, it's got a ton more stuff to it than that arena club grounds do. All right, so I would think, hopefully, that landscape contractor would be using a job order costing system to charge the customers the right amount. All right, letter F, a custom home builder. Again, one word, custom. Because this is a custom home builder, that means these homes are built to order rather than mass produced. So this custom home builder would be a job order costing system. A cell phone manufacturer. Again, kind of like the refrigerators we saw before. With a cell phone, there are different models, right? When I want my iPhone, I could get my iPhone 8, I could get my iPhone 10 or iPhone X, however you say it, right? I could get it with different levels of storage, all that different stuff, right? But I can't call Apple and say, I want an iPhone like this, and I want it to have this much storage. They'll laugh at me, right? They have their set models, and I have to choose from those set models. Those set models that they have are mass produced. Therefore, they'd use a process costing system. A manufacturer of frozen pizzas, letter H there. So a manufacturer of frozen pizzas, because these are frozen pizzas, then they're probably just mass produced, right? I mean, we might produce a ton of different varieties of these frozen pizzas, but they are mass produced, which means the manufacturer of frozen pizzas would use a process costing system. A manufacturer of multivitamins. Again, these things are not individualized for a person. They're just regular old men's one a day or women's one a day. All right, they come in a jar, right? They are mass produced, therefore they'd use a process costing system. And then finally, a manufacturer of tennis shoes. Unless you're Steph Curry or LeBron James, chances are the tennis shoes that you get, you had to pick them off of a shelf in a store, right? And those tennis shoes were mass produced, all right? So that manufacturer of tennis shoes, they're going to be using a process costing system. All right, so that's it for short exercise 19.1. So let me hop back over here to our PowerPoint slides real quick. All right, the events in a job order manufacturing system. So when we think about this job order sorry about that. When we think about this job order manufacturer, the first thing that has to happen for a job order manufacturer is they have to receive orders from customers, right? If we're talking about building things to order, then I can't start a job until I actually have a customer that's willing to pay for it and to order it, right? All right, so once I receive these orders from customers, then I can schedule these jobs. All right, once I could schedule the jobs, then I know when I'm going to need the different materials that I need, so I can order those materials. And finally, I can begin production of these job order costing system. All right, so for my job order manufacturing activities, remember we talked about allocating all of these different costs in Chapter 18. And for a job order costing system, it works in the same way. All right, so you have materials, right? And those materials, we classified them as either direct or indirect. And if they were direct, they went right into work in process, or it's called goods in process here. If they were indirect, they went right into factory or manufacturing overhead. We had labor, right? So if we had labor, if it was direct, it went right up into work in process. If it was indirect, it went up into manufacturing or factory overhead. And finally, we had to make sure that the overhead made it into the cost of that job, into that work in process or goods in process account. So we would allocate overhead into that work in process or goods in process account. Once something was finished, we would take it out of work in process and put it into finished goods. And then once something was sold, we would take it out of finished goods and put it into cost of goods sold. All right, so those are just those job order manufacturing activities. Just a quick recap of all that stuff we talked about back in Chapter 18. All right, so now let's talk about some job order cost documents, all right? The primary document for tracking the costs associated with a given job is something called a job cost sheet, all right? And it's very important that we make sure that we understand if we say that these jobs, we want to track all these specific costs of this specific job, we have to make sure that we have a way to do it. And the way to do it is through this job cost sheet. So a job cost sheet, and you guys aren't going to have to prepare this, but this is just more of an illustration for you. So this job cost sheet, what's going to happen is it's going to have what the job is, who it's for, you know, what it is that you're doing, and then it's just going to have some categories of costs like you could see listed here, right? So I have I have the direct materials area here, I have the direct labor area here, and then I have the overhead costs area here, right? All right, so I want to make sure that I'm keeping track of all of those things individually, all right? Now, what's going to happen with this job cost sheet is it's probably going to have some supplemental sheets that tie back into it. All right, so for example, when materials are needed for a job, chances are we'll have to fill out something called a materials requisition. All right, so a materials requisition will say, hey, I need this many parts of this for this job that I'm doing. All right, and these are used as an internal control procedure, right? We want to make sure that people can't just walk into the parts room and take the parts, because if they could, chances are they'd steal. Eventually, we'd have some crooked employees who are stealing all of our inventory. All right, so you have these materials requisitions that happen, and then you take inventory of that materials room every once in a while to make sure that there's nothing missing, that everything that's out of there was allocated to a materials requisition. All right, but this materials requisition, then what happens is this will tie right back into that job cost sheet that we saw in that last slide. All right, so if they were using materials requisition 1, 2, 3, I'd put 1, 2, 3 here in my number, what the amount was in that direct materials category. All right, the same thing with labor. At the end of a day, when somebody punches their labor time ticket for a manufacturing company, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to say how many hours they spent working on these different jobs. All right, so I worked on this job from this time to this time. That's this many hours. This is how much I make per hour. So this is the amount that's charged to that job. All right, the employee will sign off on it. The supervisor will sign off on it. And then this labor time ticket again will reference back to this job cost sheet. All right, so time ticket number 1, 2, 3, amount, how much was it? All right, so all of these sheets kind of work together, right, so that we can keep track of the total cost of each of these jobs. All right, very good. All right, I think I'm going to stop there for now. All right, this next piece is just, again, just a quick recap of what we talked about in Chapter 18. I think we're good for now. We'll talk about this some more in class on Wednesday, all right? All right, until then, guys, enjoy kind of reading a little bit for Chapter 19 to get yourself introduced to this job order costing system. And on Wednesday when we come back, we'll delve into it a little bit deeper, start learning how to do some journal entries for this job order system. All right, I'll see you guys then.